p.m. We have a quorum, so I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I have to read my little announcement. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people who may gather in one place, this meeting of the Sturbridge Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation can be found on the town's website at https://www.sturbridge.gov, town administrator pages, how access virtual meeting. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen and or watch the meeting either online via the town's on-demand video broadcast, on Cablevision with channel 191, or dial into the meeting at 774-304-1455, enter 1428 pound for the meeting number and 12345 for the access code. This phone number is only active for the public during public meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive recording of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay. So that gets us through the call to order. We do have reserve fund transfers, but I am going to save those to after we're done discussing everything with our different guests. And let's see, line item budget, annual town meeting. So we'll go to the annual town meeting one because that's what I think everyone's here for. And I guess we'll start at the tail end with Article 45, since it's the easiest one to find, which is the Maple Street water line replacement, which is why Butch is here to talk to us. Yes. And I guess what, why the replacement, the need for replacement?
Well, the road is in very bad shape, and we were going to repave it, pulverize it, repave it. But that water line, of course, I've only been here a couple of years, has broken, from what I've told, as many as 6 times in the last 12 years.
Wow.
So the last time being Memorial Day, we had a fire at the last house on the right. And as soon as they used the hydrant, they blew the line. It's an asbestos cement line, so it's very costly to replace, costly to get rid of the asbestos cement, and which is one of those things where, we don't have to do it now. We could wait, but it's just going to get more and more expensive every year. And it's one of the last streets in town that has that type of pipe. Cedar Street has a section of asbestos cement also, to the best of our knowledge. This would be one of the 2 last asbestos cement pipes we'd have to replace.
Okay. I guess my other question, and I can't remember if I asked this and had it answered already, but I'm going to ask it again. Since this is not new construction, but replacement of existing infrastructure, this cost is borne by everybody on the water systems, not just the people on Maple Street.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions for the board? Because I see we have the bond council language and it's been corrected. Mike?
Well, I guess I'm going to question who pays for it. I think is irrelevant too. Do we need to do the work and fund it? But I thought, in the end, that's a rate issue when we go to recover the cost of this borrowing or include it in the cost of the water system. It's not. We're not treating it as a betterment, so because it's not a betterment associated to those folks, we're treating this as a general obligation, and then it would go through the water to everybody in that fashion. Correct?
Well, that's what Butch just answered my question.
Yeah.
That's why, but it's not irrelevant because some people have the perception that if it's one road getting some type of improvement, it should only be that road that pays for it. But that's not the way it's done when it's a general infrastructure project and not new construction.
Yeah, and this is just the water line, and all the services, hydrants and all that stuff. The road repair itself could be funded under Chapter 90 or town funds.
Right. Yeah, I'm okay with this. It's a lot of money for what feels like a relatively short line, but I feel it meets the need for a replacement. You won't be able to fix the road without doing the water main. You certainly wouldn't want to fix the road and then have to come back and deal with breaks and other water mains anyway. So it's going to need to get done in the near term. I'm okay with this.
Any other questions, comments from anybody? Okay, so then I need someone to actually read the recommendation as posted in today's set. Oh, I forgot to mention that. So we are actually working from a file titled Working Copy 2022 Town Meeting Warrant _AJM 2021-05-06. So, Mike, if you would be so inclined, could you just read the language as your motion?
Well, do you want me to read the entire thing, or just want to say that the finance committee, we vote the recommendation as stated in this draft of the warrant, and then who's ever taking minutes can copy that language as part of the motion.
Yep, but I do want you to read it.
Right, then I make a motion that the finance committee recommend that the town appropriate $1,100,000 to pay costs of water line replacement, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amounts under and pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 8(5), or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. Any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Second. Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Kevin. And can it just be noted that there's a spelling mistake?
Which one?
Therefore, I believe has an E at the end.
Yeah, okay, I saw that one. And the other one, Barbara, if you're taking notes for correction, is the cents only has 1 0 and it should have 2. Okay, so on Article 45, I have the bond council motion, first by Mike, second by Joni. Any further discussion or questions before we go into the roll call? And has anyone actually from the finance committee joined the meeting since we have begun? Because I know my screen's kind of rolled off. All right. Then we'll go in order of who's here. Joe?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
And Kevin is a yes, so that's 6-0 in favor of the article. Is there anything else, Butch, you need to discuss with us, or are you happy you're done?
Well, it's not whether I'm happy or not. I think it's a worthwhile project, and I think we made it. But thank you. I'm all set.
Okay, thank you. All right, so then we'll move on to Article 44, which is recreation. And I see Robin is here for this one, and I'm going to assume that Sturbridge Recreation is the rec director. Yeah. I
Andy and
agree.
Robin, are you with us?
Yes, Rob is here. I think, yeah, Annie was planning on attending. That's usually her login for Sturbridge Recreation.
Yeah, she's muted right now.
Oh, okay, hey, Jeff, I'm sorry I interrupted. I got logistical problems.
On this side?
Hang on. I'm hearing an echo. I don't know who can hear me, but like Bruce just sent me an email saying he can't get in. I could not get in with our original GoToMeeting ID. And same thing with Joni. So something changed in our GoToMeeting ID. And the only reason I got in is because Barbara was kind enough to send me a new link right prior to this meeting when I called her. So did our link change?
I don't know, but if you want to take a break for a few minutes, resend the link out, and we'll wait to send it to Bruce.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to find Barbara's email and send it.
Okay.
And for those of you who are already here, I apologize for the repeat. All right, so that's sent out. All right. Bruce is good.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I don't see that the.
Hi, this is Annie.
Okay. All right. So I sent the link back out. When they roll in, they'll roll in. That's the best I can do. All right. So let's go back to Article 44, which is the recreation site planning concept plan. I believe we were also sent in a memo that came from Annie that was actually, I guess, intended for the Board of Selectmen. And so it had some information on it as well. So Annie, if you want to summarize it and give us the background.
Sure. So I'll actually summarize it by the summary that we wrote to be included with the article. So the current design of the multi-purpose field at 60 Cedar Street has led recreation to the need to present to the town a comprehensive plan of the Cedar recreation area. This funding will address the additional site work needed for 60 Cedar Street as recommended by Planning and Conservation to move the project forward. This funding will also create a vision plan, a concept plan for Cedar recreation area. The engineering will include borings, renderings, cost estimates, traffic impact assessment, and will provide 3 conceptual options for the community. Lastly, this funding will also review a parcel identified at 3 New Boston Road Extension for a potential dog park. These plans will benefit recreation and the community by putting together a comprehensive plan for recreation's needs.
Okay, I guess that leaves me with the perception that there was a change in the design from when it was originally presented, and so you have to go back and redo everything?
Nope, we have not presented the field plans for 60 Cedar Street to the town at this time, but they are just about ready to move forward. The Recreation Committee decided not to move forward what we would call the phase 1 for the field plans to this town meeting due to COVID impacts on the community. So if you were to picture phase 1 as the field plan for the Cedar recreation area, that contains the field, associated parking, associated ADA required updates. When we look at the larger picture for 60 and 70 Cedar Street, and especially for the phase 1 portion, we had recommendations by planning and conservation to complete the site plan for 60 prior to moving this forward. So there's a bit of site work that's recommended to complete our first phase. but due to the COVID impacts and not being able to bring the field plans forward at this town meeting, we see the need to be developing the concept plan for the entire recreation area, which would be 60 and 70.
And how many phases do you envision that being?
So far from the committee's discussions, they would like to keep the phase one separate so we can move the field plan and parking forward. But I think that if it were, a lot of that will come down to, and Robin, you can let me know if I misspeak here, potential grants that we can sign on the project. But the intent of the rec committee is to be able to keep the 60 Cedar Street portion separate to move forward with.
So this $75,000 we're going to spend for a study is only for 60 and not the entire project that you envision.
The money allocated looks at, or the 75, which would be allocated, looks at 58, 60, 70, as well as an area on 3 New Boston Road extension, which is where we are looking to put the dog park. The reason that's included is because we would like to compare 70 to 3 New Boston Road extension. So out of the 75, approximately 18,000 was the required site work or recommended site work by planning and conservation on 60 specifically.
I'm still a little confused. So the summary isn't exactly correct. The 75,000 is more than just 60 Cedar Street. So it's not some change in the multi-purpose field. It's that you reached out, I guess, to the conservation and planning, and they said, we need more details. So you're in a hunt for more details?
Yep, there's a recommendation to complete some of the site work for 60, but the article is written to include 58, 60, 70, and 3 New Boston Road extension.
Kevin, this is Mike. How about I try it this way? So we gave you money last year, a year before, to do a feasibility study to figure out if you could put a multi-purpose field on 60 Cedar Street. It sounds like you did that study and you have a feasibility study that gives you a plan that says we could plop a field down here, we can add 50-something parking spaces, and so you've got the plan that shows what you can put on that parcel. And if you were just to move forward with that, it sounds like you can't just use that plan and go, because conservation wants you to do some additional mapping and studies, and planning requires a site plan, which is a little bit more involved than what you have here. And so you need to do some design plans to get it to the phase where you can take it through the town boards, like all projects need to go through. And that's included in your 75,000. Am I right so far?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And you could move forward with just that plan, but it sounds like you guys now have bigger vision that says, in addition to just this, we can see a phase 2 and a phase 3 that adds more facilities in that area. So while we're putting these plans together, let's do kind of like a feasibility thing for these other surrounding parcels to give what sounds like a comprehensive master plan for recreation facilities at that location, and that's what we get for the $75,000. And then moving forward, I assume that'll be a big cost for all, whatever the 3 phases are. You could move forward with, okay, now that we've got the plans, we need X dollars just to do phase 1 and get the first field. But when we come for phase 2, it's all part of that plan. We're not going to go find other sites, do whatever else. We'll just bring the phase 2 funding request sometime down the road and keep building out that master plan, much like the trails people have master plans for the trails of where they're going. Do I have that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And
One last question. Did you get do you have an idea as to what the phase 1 cost of the field is?
Yep, so that is what I was going to provide some information on. So the phase 1 would have been ready to bring to the town meeting prior to our COVID impact. there was a strong recommendation from planning and conservation for some of the additional site work. That was mainly brought on from the state requirement, the ADA updates that will be required for the parcel. The field plans for the phase one, we are looking at the 200 by 320 multi-purpose field, 52 parking spaces. It is a lighted field. This does include the associated crosswalk accessibility from the field all the way down to the water. It does include some of the playground updates that, again, required by state ADA. That is just under 3.5 million.
Compared to about a $6 million price tag for the field we were talking about behind the town barn, right?
Yes, that's correct. Little difference in the, lighting, parking, some of the crosswalks, but the town barn plan was looking at the 6 million for lead removal.
This is Robin, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So one of the things that site plan review will encourage us to look at, and we heard from the planning department early on, is that if we can come with a larger site plan, we can come one time and that approval will last for 5 years. So that will save on fees down the road for multiple reviews of bits and pieces. If we come in with a comprehensive approach. And conservation was a similar ideal that if we came in with one larger approach or general concept plan, they would know the larger stormwater impact since we're so close to Cedar Lake. And synthetic turf fields help us a lot with that because they absorb a lot of water. So from my perspective, in my multiple seats this year, the other thing that happened for facilities is we were working with the senior center and the study committee for 70 Cedar Street. So between the two projects that we've been working on, we've gotten some initial feedback from the townspeople, from citizens, and from other parties who have asked, if you're going to do something, anything in this location, how are you dealing with traffic? How are you going to address the road? How are you going to address, the water line? Is the water line okay if you provide facilities here? Some of those other infrastructure things. And what I'd like to have this comprehensive plan be able to show that, whether we put in a new widened road with a bike lane and sidewalks, which is somewhat already in process with Complete Streets. There's just lots of layers overlapping, and I think the townspeople could very much benefit from one rendered site plan or a couple of options to see what the possibilities are here for recreation.
So I guess I'm a little confused because we managed to spend X amount of dollars for a plan that gave us everything to give us the $3.5 million, project outline that would have had all the details, to construct it. And now we have to spend an additional $75,000 to get more information that was left out of the original plan.
I don't know that it was left out of the original plan. The first project was very specific to the field itself, and not specific to the entirety of 60 Cedar Street, which is a very large property, the way that it's cut on a site plan.
So Kevin, this is Mike. In my world, in my mind, we did the feasibility study. We have a plan. It takes the parcel, it plops the field on there. It shows how it fits in there. It shows how the parking space lays out, but it's not
Construction costs.
the level of detail that's neat. It's not to, and it achieved what it was expected and the cost, and achieved what it was supposed to do, but the plans aren't to a level to be able to get to a site plan, and it also doesn't include the more comprehensive look at all these other areas that, if we can move forward with just, lower this amount of money, just say get enough to get the site plan through and move from there. But when they come back and say we want phase 2 and phase 3, they're going to need some money to do feasibility studies and plans for the phase 2 and 3. So it's really taking the first step, which in my mind, I feel they achieved, and that's the first, I understand that first step, and it's taking it to the next level. This is adding and building on what they have here.
Right, it's adding on to the existing project. So I'm curious, why wasn't all of this considered when the original was developed and proposed? I mean, why double the cost of the analysis when it should have been done all at once?
We did try to put forward the request for 60 and 70 in 2019. We were not able to at the time, so rec committee focused on phase 1. And then for this past spring, phase 1 could have been kept separate. We could have moved forward. The recommendation was not to go into a debt exclusion when we knew we would be coming back for approximately $18,000 more to Cedar Street. But the main reason that the phase 1 is not being brought forward to the community is Recreation Committee didn't find that appropriate in the middle of the pandemic effects on our community.
So then you're saying, based on what you just said, you have all the information you need for phase 1, and this additional $75,000 is just for all the extra phases for the other properties.
Approximately $18,000 of it is for the remaining work needed on 60 Cedar Street. That's for some of the stormwater and the roadways. If you need a visual, that would be some of the area near the tennis courts. That's where we're looking at the stormwater runoff and needing additional information. The remaining portion will look at 58, 70, and 3 New Boston Road extension.
And so what's proposed in addition to the field at 60 and a dog park at New Boston Road? What are you looking for in the other 2? What are you expecting these detailed designs to give you?
The same summary we had for the board freshmen.
You
So on the
broke up.
back page, sorry, what was that?
You broke up. I didn't hear a word you say.
So Recreation continues to request the previously identified needs. We're looking at an additional multi-purpose field, that would be 70 Cedar Street, dog park, parking, potentially a building, and an outdoor fitness area. And the 3 New Boston Road extension would also be to compare the feasibility of the dog park between the 2 proposed locations.
So you're getting a second field, a building, additional parking, and that's what you're looking for so far, I'm getting, and then 1 of 2 locations for a dog park you want to figure out. Did I summarize that incorrectly? Someone going to answer that?
I said that's correct. I'm not sure if you can hear me again.
Okay. No, I did not hear you. And oh, hey, Joanne.
I'm not sure what's going on audio-wise here.
Right. So just to know, Bruce came in at 6:54. Are there any other questions related to this?
I have a question. It's Kathy.
Who's?
Kathy,
Oh, okay.
take this off. I thought that parcel 70 was also under consideration for the senior center, the proposed senior center.
It is.
So why would we be spending money on something that we don't know what we're going to use it for? Until we know what we're going to use it for. Because I don't think that vote is planned until at least the fall on the senior center. Is that correct? Or even next year?
I would hope the fall.
Okay. I mean, so then
Was
it would
there
not be a dog
question,
park
Kathy?
or a field then if the senior center came on that, was voted for that particular spot.
There's been no decision made on, A, where the senior center will go of the three options, or B,
Jeff, we can hardly hear you.
there's been no decision made on which one of the three options for the senior center will be primary, although the study committee has made 70-seater their recommended location, nor has there been a determination on whether rec or the seniors get 70-seater street to use for that particular piece of the area.
So has the senior center already have design work in, planning done for 70 Cedar Street?
Yes, we did 3 turnkey options for a new or renovated senior center. So we have 3 possibilities, really 2. The third one, Shepherd, has its own set of hurdles which probably won't make it feasible. But between the current location and 70 Cedar Street, we have a full cost estimate and preliminary drawings or preliminary layouts of renovated or new buildings with full surveys of the sites.
The senior center study has been posted along with the recommended generalized test fit, which isn't really a site plan. It's sort of a generic box on 70 Cedar, is on the facilities department on the Town of Sturbridge website.
Joanne? One logistical thing too, Jim is 7:02.
So Kevin, this is Mike. Along those lines, I'm okay with where recreation is going, but I am concerned about the lack of coordination on 70 Cedar Street. And if there's already plans there, and then recreation is going to come up with a plan to put a field there, and now we got two things there. I mean, had Jeff said, these two are coordinated and they're using the same parcel, but different pieces of it, and there's no overlap or conflicts in there. So, I'm tempted to say that I'm okay moving forward, but only with some understanding that there's a little bit of coordination of the overlap of these things, and we don't end up 2 people using the same parcel and competing plans, and why spend money studying that if the senior center may go there or not go there, take that out of this study, reduce it by X thousands of dollars, and find somewhere else to go. So that, I'd like to know how we're going to get the coordination between these 2 competing projects.
And I tend to agree with you there because I know that the senior center was like the #1 on the hit parade for a long time. And so I've heard several times in this conversation that they only need $18,000 of the 75 to do their phase 1 work is, completed at 60 Cedar Street. So, I mean, I could go as far as $18,000, but I can't see the whole thing going until we know how we're going to use all that property.
And that's really the magic to this study, is to really understand what's the more beneficial use of 70 Cedar Street from whether it be the dog park in that location or the senior center in that location. There's, like I said, there's been no answer on where the senior center will be, and I don't think we can get an answer. I think the answer will come this summer, but I would not want you to hold up this article or the other elements to 70, because there's much more to it than that little square piece that may be a dog park.
Yeah, but you said the priority was the senior center. So why wouldn't we make sure that that's completely squared away before we start crossing purposes with other uses?
But wouldn't that delay the entirety of all of the other work that needs to be done to the feasibility of the recreation, the other lots in the portions of 70 that may still be available after the senior center? It seems like a long pause to wait for I think this project's been going on for
May I
a
add
couple of years.
additional information?
Please.
One of the intents where we mentioned that potentially a building, and that would be looking for the master planning for recreation, but through the conversations, again, the beginning conversation, we are hoping that the dog park will fit on the 3 New Boston Road extension because at face value, it looks like it will fit very nicely. The dog park being moved to 3 New Boston Road extension will then free up the area that would potentially be a council on aging center or a community center between both of the projects. From the information that the council on aging, the center study has, shows that the area that has been deemed viable for a building wouldn't affect some of the parking and field projects. So ultimately, in terms of master planning, these projects could very much so end up being one, specifically the community center. I'm hesitant to say these words too early because that is, a substantial building. But there is an intent to both combine and take in consideration the work that the senior center has done for the 70 Cedar Street. We did approach the property together several years ago, and that was the intent. So there wasn't any of this confusion. But the placement of the dog park for 70 Cedar Street looks like it would be, more so the competing factor for our viable building location. But the Recreation Committee is very understanding that this has been deemed a viable building location, which has been very hard to come by, not only in Sturbridge, but on recreation areas.
Okay. Any other questions or comments related to this article?
Yeah, this is Mike. So just so I'm clear, from a recreation study perspective, you're only looking at 70 Cedar Street for the dog park portion of your little master plan here?
No, sorry, let me explain this. So 70 Cedar Street would be looking to place a second multipurpose field, the dog park, parking for both of these, potentially a building in terms of master planning, and an outdoor fitness area. We added in 3 New Boston Road extension because the area that was previously looked at for ball fields, where we have the high cost of ledge removal, looks as though it can host a dog park of a significant size. If we are able to remove this from 70 Cedar Street, which was previously identified for the dog park under recreation's, wish list, then we are able to free up our viable building location, whether that potentially be council on aging, a recreation building, or community center, 10 years down the line.
Okay.
Now you opened up one more point. I'm sorry, joining us here. Mike said earlier that he hinted that you guys had a recreation master plan. Do you or don't you, or is it just a wish list?
We're this would be creating our master plan.
So you
This way
don't
we are
have.
able to show the phases to the community.
Joni, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. It's a little bit on that same thing. You mentioned the master plan, but yet it doesn't sound like this was thought out too well. And I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be better to just get together on a master plan first and decide what you guys want to do, because I'm hearing so many things on these parcels and it's almost like it's a land grab. Whoever gets there first gets to build. I don't quite understand it. And yet, there's several options for it, clearly, but and it sounds like there are some things working in tandem. You've got, the senior center, which is a priority for the town, and then you've got this, and then a dog park, and then a fitness center, and a community center, and all these things you want to do. Not to mention the fact that we had a feasibility study last year or the year before, and this is in addition to whatever that was. I mean, we don't have that kind of money to just go playing around with, you know, what if we do this? What if we build this? What if we do this? I mean, and I don't know how else to say it, but that's what I'm seeing here. I just think that maybe going back to the drawing board and getting that master plan and figuring it out, or wait for the senior center. I mean, what's the rush?
So this is the same request we've been working on since 18. We brought to Board of Selectmen in 19. The only item out of the list for 70 Cedar Street that would be more so up in the air is the placement of the dog park. And I think that would be the Recreation Committee listening to some of the other towns' needs, such as the senior center. But the committee has been working on these identified needs for several years now. If we are not able to complete the master plan, I mean, the years do keep escaping, we're not able to then apply for grants, which we would still like the opportunity to even apply for any potential grants for phase one, instead of bringing that to the June town meeting. But the dog park is the only spot that we are looking for a potential, second location to accommodate some of the other towns' needs.
Well, my only thing is, I'm not so concerned about other towns because it's not their money. But I also think that planning is, very important when it comes to figuring out what you need, what you want to do, identifying these goals and objectives. I mean, it's somewhat basic, and it just doesn't sound like, even since 2018, it's just not there. The planning and organization is just not there.
I have two comments, Joni. I don't think she, when she said other towns' needs, I think she meant other needs of Sturbridge, not needs of other towns. I think that's what her reference was. And again, I'm new to this. I don't have the history. It seems to me is that they do have a expected use of the lands. There are pieces of it that are open or unknown, and they're trying to understand what the options are for that, and that this study will allow for them to understand and finalize those decisions so that there will be a specific plan, recognizing there are a couple of open items. That's how I read having read their report, that's how I read the situation.
Okay, well, I don't.
Well, I have a further follow-up here, because, I look at this as we're supposed to do the taxpayers. If a taxpayer can think of a question, we should be able to provide them an answer. And I look at Article 39 of fiscal year 2020 thing, and it basically says, spend $49,000 to expand existing recreational facilities that will include the construction of a synthetic turf, multi-purpose athletic field, and associated parking. There's nothing about a second field, says nothing about a building, says nothing about additional parking, says nothing about fitness park, says nothing about a dog park. So essentially, are we going through a bait and switch? We said we're only looking at a field, 2 years ago, and now we want to look at everything under the sun?
That was the recommendation to move forward with phase one, but the request was 60 and 70 Cedar Street. 70 Cedar Street had not been deemed to recreation or council on aging at the time. So the funding for phase one is why we now have the field plans for phase one, but due to the cost and the pandemic, we are hoping to complete the master plan.
So, but you still need $18,000 to finish phase one. So basically you're taking what you originally proposed to the town, adding a whole bunch more facilities and fields and everything else and just asking for more money to design that as well. So what the town originally was proposed to the town to pay for, you really only need $18,000 to finish.
The recommendation from, planning and conservation, I don't know if the recreation committee would have chosen to move forward without completing the additional site work. I don't think they would have done that, but it did not formally go to conservation or planning boards. So this was continuing, perfecting the plan to bring forward. It would be difficult to bring phase 1 now, and then in several years, when we're looking at phase 2, we need to go back to 60 to continue working on some of either the stormway or the traffic assessment. But partially the delay, but also the need to identify the master plan and the hope to be able to begin applying for any of the grant projects ties into the 18,000.
Kevin, this is Mike. I go back and read that article, and it says it's to determine the feasibility of expanding the rec facilities, and that project would include what you're talking about. So in my mind, I think they met the intent of Article 39 from that year. They've done the feasibility study, and they can sit and show how they can put a multi-purpose field on there and show the parking. And if the town wants to move forward with that alone, then somebody can amend this article and say, well, to move forward from this point, we need $18,000 to develop the more detailed permitting level plans that we need to get through Concom and planning, and just move forward with phase 1. And town meeting can certainly amend this article and limit it and move forward with that alone. I think what Rec is saying is we could do that, but for a little bit more money, we can give you those things plus the broader overall plan. Do you want to spend the extra money with a more comprehensive plan? And in my mind, I think we talked about this again. We keep study, but we never build, never execute. This is kind of falling into if this one passes and you get this overall study money and you move forward as planned, it almost seems like at the end we're done. We don't need to come back and study yet another location because this one didn't work out, or if town meeting doesn't want to fund $3.5 million or X million for the rest. This has got to be the end here.
I would disagree with you again, because $3.5 million is just for the first field, the one that was proposed in Article 39 2 years ago. So if we were to move forward with $3.5 million, it's going to be way more than 5 years before we take on, a senior center, a field, and more borrowing.
How do you get 5 years? How do you get 5 years out of that?
How do I get 5 years out of what, Jeff? Sorry.
That we're not going to build anything for 5 years.
I didn't. Someone in this conversation said that if they went forward with this design, they were told that the plan would be good for 5 years.
The plan or the cost estimate? I don't know.
The site plan approval from the planning department would be good for 5 years.
The site plan approval.
Yeah, I guess an additional perspective that I have is that if we did this, if indeed there is a proposal for spending $3.5 to $6 million, then of course we're going to need this level of research and site work done. And so to not do it hamstrings the opportunity for this to ever get done. So.
And maybe that's part of what we either add in the discussion or add in a summary box. Hey, we completed the feasibility study from that article. The cost of those facilities are about $3.5 million. You want to spend, 18 and move forward with that, and people will realize they're going to get hit with a $3.5 million request near term, or spend the 75. We'll be able to come forward with a $3.5 million request and give you the broader overall picture, and they can figure out just how much effort they want the recreation committee to put into this.
But they haven't. I mean, again, this is a wish list. There's no plan. I don't think they've said that there's why is there a need for a second field? Why is there a need for a fitness center, I guess they call it. I forget. Can't read my own writing. I mean, there's no plan. And we make everyone else come together and kind of say, here's my roadmap. You know, we've got, everything's got a roadmap. We just saw the historical societies coming together and making a plan or how they see what they're going to do for historical preservation in town. And we, you know, rate them and what they think is important. This is just like, we want everything, so let's just spend the money and see how much all this, everything we want is going to cost. When we already have some of it.
Yeah, so Kevin, and I don't disagree, but here's the other thing about that money. You know, we don't have that kind of money. And if people were looking at the forecast like we see in front of us, they might rethink this. It goes back to planning. I mean, I just don't think that that has been done. Can somebody, I'm just curious, and I don't know, Mike, if you have the information at your hands, because you had some information from the last article. How much was that?
49,000.
I'm sorry?
Article 39 was for $49,000.
So it was 49,000 for the initial feasibility study, and now this is an additional 75. I mean, it's a lot of money, and I have to say, you know, the past couple of years we've actually been pretty good with our feasibility studies, not going too crazy and actually following through with them, unlike some that just die a natural death and the money's gone, no harm, no foul. But we don't have that kind of money to just spend and have it sit on a shelf or die a natural death.
Mr. Chair, can I say something? And I desperately did not want to say this tonight, because I've never seen studies like that are on my shelf and all those other things that just sit there. It's not my, I'm ready to go on a senior center, and I understand the 3 or 4 month hiatus before we get to it. I get that. But the reality of 60 Cedar Street is there's never been a site plan. There's never been a road laid out or utilities mapped or storm drainage designed or a sidewalk laid out or making room for the new retaining wall and all those plan elements that would go into a typical overall design of a comprehensive recreation area. This site has never gone through that, and that's really what is dragging that project down. Okay, the field study was done exactly as it was supposed to be. There's a $3.5 million plan for a beautiful multi-use field sitting in the middle of an unplatted tract of land with an insufficient road and no sidewalk, or no understanding how utilities, including electricity, will get to it. So that's the genesis of this additional study. So, and in addition to that, because you're designing all this stormwater, you're designing the utilities, you're designing the parking, you're designing these other things, and there is some competition, I'm going to say it, between the senior center and a dog park or some other use on this property, but I'm a team player. There is a possibility and opportunity now to take 70 and all those things that may be there and all those impacts that may come from those other amenities and incorporate those into the detailed site plan for utilities, drainage, traffic, parking, pedestrian access, and all those good things that are going into 60. So although all these studies drive me crazy as a manager, this one probably has to happen.
They drive us crazy as a finance committee because, you know, we spent all this money on them and know they're sitting there gathering dust and are pretty much useless.
And I get it. I'm a doer. I want things done. I want to move stuff. But in this particular instance, you just can't build a field because you don't know where the electricity is. You don't know where the drainage is. You don't know where the parking is. You don't know how wide the road is because there's no platted road.
Right, but from what we heard, they only need $18,000 to do it.
I know, but then you have an opportunity to make sure you're not going to under-design that infrastructure, that basic infrastructure, with other amenities that may be possible on 70. Right? You get the whole meal deal. That way, when you do come back for amenities on 70, you can say this piece We already have a road to it, we already know where the parking's gonna be, we already know where the storm drainage is gonna be, we know where the sewer's gonna be, we know how we're gonna get lighting to it, we just gotta design the surface.
Well, but then we'll have to have another study to see how much it's really gonna cost for the second phase.
Well, for the detailed amenity, absolutely. But you're not gonna have to look at traffic, you're not gonna have to look at drainage, you're not gonna have to look at parking, you're not gonna have to look at water, sewer, utilities, and all those good things. You're gonna account for that already.
For only 5 years though, right? Because then after 5 years, we'd have to resubmit to get it approved again through planning and conservation.
But it's not about, but then it's just about a stamp on a plan, not about designing capacity.
So Kevin, this is Mike. I'm at a point where I feel I have enough information to make a vote on the article. I don't know if others need anything or if you're looking for motion.
No, we can do that, continue discussion.
Okay. So I'll lead. I'll make a motion that the finance committee recommend that town meeting approve the article as written.
Second.
Okay. Who's second? I'm sorry.
That was Joe.
Who did?
Joe.
Joe.
Joe? Okay, thank you, Joe. All right, any other discussion or comment? All right, then. We'll start in order alphabetically. Bruce?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Joe?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Joni?
No.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
No.
Kevin is a no. Jim? Jim?
Jim's muted.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Jim is a yes. So that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4. So the motion passes 5-3-0.
And I'm sure Amy and the rec folks understand that they're going to have to come prepared to sell this at town meeting floor.
Absolutely.
All righty, so that gets us to our last guest, Tom, wherever you went. I appreciate you sticking around. And you're here for Article 32, that's my understanding anyways, which is, let me get back to it. On page,
Excuse me, Kevin, I just want to say thank you for your time tonight before you guys get going. I didn't want to interrupt.
all right,
Thank you
thanks.
for the discussion tonight.
Thank you.
So Article 32 is an easement on 77 Farquhar Road.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, it is.
Turn left at the chicken coop, Tom.
Yeah, turn left at the chicken coop. So, a little history, real briefly. This is related to the construction of the Grand Trunk Trail, the federal grant that we received back in 2005. We are now approaching the 95% design construction phase. In another week or so, we will be presenting the plans before the Conservation Commission for the various required wetlands permitting that's needed. We've already got the Army Corps of Engineers to sign off on the project where it's being constructed on their property. And, you know, the project is moving forward. So as part of the making sure every item is dotted and the T's are crossed, it was discovered that on 77 Farquhar Road, the property owner at 75 has access to 3 building footprints. Now, the short history is when the Army Corps of Engineers acquired a flowage easement, which is now all encapsulated on 77 Farquhar Road, 77 Farquhar Road as a separate lot did not exist, but was part of 75 Farquhar Road. Somewhere after the Army Corps of Engineers acquired the flowage easement, let me back up. At the time the Corps acquired the flowage easement, on that then parcel of 75 Farquhar Road were 3 structures: a barn, a woodshed, and a chicken coop. The Corps allowed those buildings to remain and allowed access to those structures undefined at the time. Subsequent, an owner of 75 Farquhar Road subdivided and parceled off that flowage easement piece. And so they would no longer pay taxes on it. And although it was a separate parcel, the town taxed it, and then we eventually took it for non-payment of taxes. However, when that parcel was separated out, nothing in the deed mentions the access to those 3 structures, which are just concrete foundation. There's no building standing. It's just a concrete pad and a concrete foundation. When we started getting into the final details of the design to maintain the appropriate wetland setbacks, we just needed to go through what is known as the chicken coop foundation pad. And in reviewing the deeds, that's when we discovered that the now owner of 75 Farquhar Road has access, undefined, to not only the chicken coop, but to this barn foundation and the shed foundation. So to resolve all of this, we have met with the owner of 75 Farquhar Road, and he is going to relinquish all access except as defined and set out in this new easement document, to maintain the use of access to the barn foundation and to the shed, but is giving up access to the chicken coop area and any other access on the remaining parcel of 77 Farquhar Road. This now allows us to be able to put the trail, remove the chicken coop foundation, put the trail, maintain our environmental setbacks, our wetland setbacks for the trail, and move forward with the project. So that's the purpose of this article, is to actually redefine the access that has always existed on this property for 75 Farquhar Road.
Okay, so he's
I hope I didn't
basically,
bore you with that long story.
it's
I
kind of
appreciate the
housekeeping.
clarity.
All right, so we haven't voted this yet, even though it says it has. Okay. Any questions for Tom?
No.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Kathy.
It's more of a technical matter in the description. On, it's at the top of page 20, I guess it's page 22. You're talking about lot 1, Plan Book 589, Plan 6. Are those the plans from the Registry of Deeds? Is that what you're referencing? That's unclear to me, what plan book you're looking at or you're referencing.
So the short answer is yes, Kathy. To make sure his ties were valid, he went back to the adjoining properties and made some ties. And so he's referencing where those tie points are.
Well, I guess the question is, should you reference that those plan books, it's plan book in the Worcester Registry of Deeds? Because otherwise, I don't know where that plan book is. I assume that's what you mean, but it seems like it should be referenced. And then just below it, where it says the following 9 courses, you have map 3454, lot 75. Are those the town maps?
Hey, Kathy,
Yeah,
just one question for you. Look at the very last sentence. It says something about, does that answer your concern or not? The above described property is shown on a plan prepared by Levesque and is to be recorded at the Worcester District Registry of Deeds.
yeah, but then, well, then he's talking about a new plan, but if he's already referencing plan numbers and plans, that
okay,
means
I
it's
see what
already
you-
somewhere. And I'm assuming it is the registry, and if I had just more than my phone, I would look it up, but it's hard to see it on a little phone.
Tom, can you reach out to the surveyor and ask if that would be appropriate in the legal, please, and where we would, and where in the legal description we would identify those elements?
The source of those books and pages, sure.
Yep, please.
I'll reach out to him tomorrow.
Thank you.
So Kevin, this is Mike. I don't have a problem with what we're trying to achieve here. As I look at the article, starting at the top to see if the town will vote the grant and then the legal description. I see what the issues Kathy's raising, so I'll assume that town council and or the registered land surveyor will make sure that the easement language is accurate and we don't end up down the road with another article to straighten out some language in this one here. And I won't even try to comment on any of it. My only question is, when I get through the end of the easement description, it says that the purpose of the easement is to provide whatever in exchange is contained in the easement document. I don't know if that's the one above, I didn't see it. The owner relinquishes all rights. That last paragraph just seemed a little odd or out of the ordinary for how we would word articles. I don't know if that's supposed to be in the text, in the comment box, or if it should just be reworded somehow, but it just seems unusual for how we write articles.
So Mike, the person who did the survey is a registered land surveyor. He was actually the one who brought this whole problem to our attention.
Yep.
Because we wanted to ensure we knew where the property lines were on 77 Farquhar Road before we built the trail. That was part of the required due diligence, working with the Federal Highway Administration. So, and again,
Tom, let me try it this way. The article says, what are we asking people to do? We're asking them to vote to grant an easement with the language that carries through there. I'm okay with that. And then the article continues to say the purpose of the easement is to provide the owners with this right, and in exchange we're going to get this. That's the paragraph that I don't know if it was meant to be in kind of like an information box, but if it's part of the article, it again, the way that last paragraph is worded just seems unusual for the action that we're at. We're explaining what the action is versus just say, here's the action we're asking you to take.
Yeah, Mike, I see what you're saying. We can probably strip most of that out and just leave or take any action relative there too.
And I certainly like the part, where in exchange we're getting something. I mean, that I don't know if that happens as part of the overall transaction or not, or if you want it included in there. But I would just ask that. So I don't know how we would vote this, but I would just maybe town council to review it, or just to make sure it's correct.
So, yeah, are the Board of Select meeting Monday night where they can open the warrant?
Say again?
Are the Board of Selectmen meeting Monday night where they can reopen the warrant and change the language?
If we have language changes, we can always, take that ourselves and vote it at another meeting to, recommendation of Finance Committee is, and then reword the article the way we think it should be done.
That's true.
Well,
But
and I don't know, Mr. Chair, is a revote necessary when the adjustments aren't material?
Well, they are material. Kathy's points are very material. They are telling you where you can find the details. That's a pretty big oops.
Well, if you vote and say with the amendment that the location of the aforesaid maps are included in the legal description, then we can insert it without another vote.
Let me just give me a second here.
Can I ask a question for Tom while you guys hash that out?
Go ahead.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Joni.
Hey, Tom, my only concern, as I look on the map, is, is making sure that the property owner, number one, is, fully on board with this, that anything that needs to be filed with the deeds is on file, so that in years to come, when property passes hands for whatever reason, these things are not lost and that they're actually on the deed. So if we're giving him or her access, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like there's something on the property that that they access to the property that you're talking about, right? So, that needs to be clearly defined so that there isn't some sort of issue with the ownership, whether it's an easement or whatever the case might be. I just want to make sure that the person owning the property is not losing anything because of this, and that, legally will do right by them.
So, Joni, we have met a number of times in evolving to this point where we are today with the property owner on the site. We have walked it, we have shown him where the bounds are. Matter of fact, in that process, he said, I'd like to have a little more space if I could. And so we went to the expense of actually, in another section of this where we could move the trail, we actually moved the trail away from the barn foundation, so he had more area there to work in front of the barn based on his current use. So yes, he is using that concrete pad to store stuff and, whatever. He's been enjoying that over all of these many years. And so we do not want to take that away from him, and we are not. The chicken coop is an area that he personally has not accessed in many, many, many years, and has very, graciously said, yes, you can have the chicken coop area. And Jeff met with him, both myself and Rebecca, the conservation agent. We've met with him and we've been working with him. So he is fully on board with this. That's why we're here presenting it. I wouldn't have presented it if there was a problem, because I just wouldn't want to go down that route until we had resolved all of the issues to his satisfaction.
Okay, so then everything will be taken care of with this family, and if and when the time comes to transfer hands, all of this will be on the deed, noted, et cetera, et cetera.
If this is voted on at the town meeting, then we have this easement to record on the property. That's correct. And as you see the plan, it's the building foundations are shown on the plan, in addition to the area, adjacent to that they have access to. So it is defined on this document, the building foundations and the access all the way out to Farquhar Road, so that he has access from Farquhar Road, to these foundations, to these structures.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So, this is another one of those things, spirit and letter of the law. The letter of the law is here. We understand what you're is incorrect, but we understand what you're trying to do. We need to get that letter of the law correct, so the people have what they're voting on correct in front of them. So, I was planning to meet next week, but not to take any business. But if we have to wait a week to get the details, I'm willing to let this one slide and vote it next week, just to make sure we have everything detailed.
What details are we missing? I mean, I understand the map, location.
Where's the book where it's from?
What's that?
Where is this book where the plan and the page is located on?
I understand.
Kathy,
But you can include in your motion that we insert the necessary location of the maps or the reference for the maps. I don't know that that's fatal to an action tonight.
I do. I mean, I don't know how anyone else feels. I mean, we need to know what that source is.
Well, if you had a,
Well, the legal description has been through the attorney at least twice already. And they've not discovered it fatal at this point. I can bring it to their attention, and I'm sure we can work out the necessary language, but
well, let me see if I can look it up, even though it's very small. The one where it says map 3454 lot 75 are the town maps. That's for sure. I just looked that up. But hold on here.
Well, Kathy, this is Larry. While Kathy's looking that up, I think the point Jeff just made is that the committee, if it wishes, can pass a motion that contains a contingency, that the motion passes provided, and then they are set forth, those provisions, they're enumerated, provided 1, 2, 3, spelled out. When those are documented, then by the committee's own motion, everything's set. And we could do that tonight. If it turns out that things are not documented, then there is no satisfaction and nothing can happen. And we can report that to the town meeting.
this surveyor's doing work for the Army Corps of Engineers, Mass DOT, Federal Highway. There's no way that this legal description is not going to be spot on because it's part of a project where there's more federal money in it than anything else. I mean,
Jeff, has town council reviewed the warrant, which also includes a review of this easement and my question about the paragraph that's contained in the article at the end?
I think he looked at that as a descriptive article, like a summary. He focused on the legality. I mean, he focuses on the legality, not on, does the narrative sound appropriate? He's worried about the legal impact of the warrant itself.
I mean, Kevin, this plan in the Worcester Registry of Deeds is Farquhar Road, so I think that you have to assume this is, that probably you should just put in there somewhere, Worcester Registry of Deeds. Because it's definitely Farquhar Road. Can't see it that well, but it also looks like it's near the Army Corps land, so I think all you really should put in there at some point is just the reference to Worcester Registry of Deeds to make it precise where that plan book and plan are.
Where would you put that, Kathy? We can make the amended motion to put that in and strike the language Mike is concerned about.
Probably after Lot 1, Plan Book 589, Plan 6 in the recorded in the
Kathy
Worcester
really
Registry
wants
of
to be
Deeds.
providing legal advice to the finance committee in the town here. And I hate for us to, not that she's doing it, but kind of get into that level of detail on a legal description here. Is there a way to add something in the end here that says, this article, the above easement, or something very similar is approved by town council, just in case somebody has to go in there and change something down the road, that it doesn't have to come back to a vote, but the intent of the easement and the bounds are there. By just adding some little wiggle room piece at the very end.
Yeah, but I think Kathy just proved where it was. All we have to do is add that language and then strike the language you were concerned with. It's
Okay.
amending.
Or
Kevin?
just put in the motion that should be a reference somewhere in there, whether the surveyor puts it in or town council, there should be a reference to the Worcester Registry of Deeds, because that's where that plan book and plan are. Otherwise, it could be a plan book in some other registry of deeds for all we know, but unlikely since Sturbridge is in Worcester, but still. You like to be really precise in a description.
Yeah. Joni, did you have a question?
It was Barbara.
Oh, it's Barbara?
No, I don't have a question, I have a comment. So what Jeff is saying though, is that he is going to check on that tomorrow and he's going to insert the language that you guys are concerned with after speaking to council. And then the last paragraph, the purpose, I believe what happened is that it should have been part of the text box. And so we will move that back into the text box and then, or take any action relative thereto with the end of the capitalized part of the article. I believe that that is what happened.
Okay.
And then ultimately, you're going to change the text box the way you want anyway. So in the end, it doesn't really matter.
Well, the text box is pretty well defined right now, the way it's written.
Right, but that paragraph was kind of hanging on another page by itself outside of the text box, and I thought it was the part of the article from when we were moving things around, so maybe it wasn't, but I don't think it changes the intent of the article by us just eliminating and putting that back where it needs to be or eliminating it altogether. But I think you're getting hung up on the fact that, Jeff already said he's going to make the changes if they are necessary, and we will fix this last paragraph.
Yeah, but technically you don't have the authority to make those changes because this is already closed by the Board of Selectmen.
Right, but if we put something in the wrong spot and it belonged in the text box, then it was just an error as we're putting the warrant together. It doesn't change the intent of the article as presented.
That's what I'm saying. Is it material to the article? Does it change what the article does? Does it change the financial impact of the article? Does it change anything other than the words on the page?
So we've been doing these cleanups in each last couple of years. We've been catching the typos. We've been fixing some things up. We've been managing the finance committee version, works with Barbara, and the warrant that gets posted officially prior to town meeting reflects all those changes. So what I hear you saying is these are just editorial cleanups as part of that regular process. And so if one were to make a motion that finance committee recommended we approve the article as written, it will be as written with these adjustments that we're talking about here. So we don't need to make a long-winded motion that basically duplicates this with the correction we're talking about.
And how do you verify the adjustments are made according to our intent? Because that's a big problem with one of the articles we already have. We had an adjustment, it was not adjusted to our intent.
Yes, but Kevin, that's not true, because I brought to your attention that based on our conversation, that I thought there might still be a concern with that article. So I think you have to trust that, Jeff and I are making the corrections as are spoken to or spoken about at Board of Selectmen and FinCom meetings. And ultimately, you're going to get another copy of the warrant, hopefully tomorrow or Monday, where you'll be able to then review it again. And it's not your last meeting. So you can take a look at it. And as you just said a little while ago, you do have time to make adjustments to that article next Thursday.
And if all else fails, we can walk into town meeting and with a substitute motion and say, hey, the thing that was posted and printed didn't line up with what the finance committee believed it voted, and here's the substitute motion to reflect what we are recommending, what our intent was you vote here.
Well, is it a big deal to just make the correction and then maybe next week, Kevin, we vote it?
I'm willing to entertain what the majority of the committee wants to do. I mean, we're basically saying we need to add the words about the Worcester Registry of Deeds up front in the first, well, in the second bolded paragraph, well, not bolded, capitalized, fully capitalized paragraph. Then we're going to strike everything in that last paragraph except the last words. We're going to take any action relative there too.
And I'm saying, I believe your intent is clear, and let us do it, and have the faith in us that we will.
So Kevin, I'll lead with my chin here. I'll make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend town meeting vote the article as written, with the understanding that as written, is with the insertion of the reference to Worcester County
Mr. Registry.
there, if that's deemed appropriate by town council, and the removal of the the paragraph prior to, or the wording prior to, or taking the action relative thereto in the last paragraph.
Second.
Any other questions or comments from anybody else? All right, then. We'll go into a vote. So Bruce.
Aye.
Let's see, I take it that's a yes. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kevin's a yes. And Jim?
Yes.
Yes?
It was a yes. I heard him, yes.
Yes.
All right. So then that's 8-0 in favor of the article with our adjustments. And we'll check it out and verify it.
Kevin, when
Yeah.
do we have to have all this stuff prepared and ready to review for the book?
We're going to be discussing that later on tonight.
Okay, but remember, I have to leave shortly. I sent you a text.
You did?
I did. It's in there.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, Tom. Tom, you're
Thank
gonna
you.
check with the surveyor?
I actually don't have a text yet. So
I have a text. I texted it to you.
You're gonna check with the surveyor?
Yes, I will check with the surveyor.
Oh.
I'll actually fire him an email right now.
One other point, you wanna describe what a bound is? Remember we
bound is
talked
measuring
about
from fixed
bound?
point.
Okay, I got that down.
Okay. All right, thanks.
All right.
All right.
All right, so we've taken care of all the people who are coming to meet with us tonight. So we'll go back to the agenda order.
Too many
And
open
I know,
mics.
Joni, you have to drop, maybe, what I had was for you and Kathy, I think it was you and Kathy, I have it all written down, but you and Kathy can talk. Oh, no, actually, you're doing the line item budget. I'll send you an email if you need to drop.
Okay.
All right, so let's go back to the beginning and deal with the 2 reserve fund transfers. Where is that, Kevin? All right, so the first reserve fund transfer is with the inspectors in salaries and wages. Its amount requested is $8,000 and for May and June. Wow. So I have to ask, Barbara, what is Pine Lake?
Pine Lake is the RV park.
The old Yogi Bear RV park.
Ah, okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Or otherwise, can I get a motion to approve the transfer of $8,000 from the reserve fund to the inspector's salaries and wages account?
This is Jim. I'll make the motion.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Larry? Any discussion? All right, then, back to the roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Joni? Oh, she's gone now. All right, so let me just get her out of here altogether. Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kevin's a yes, and Jim?
Yes.
That's 7-0 in favor of the reserve fund transfer. All right, on to the second one, which is transfer request for $5,959.66 to the Worcester County Retirement. Do I have any questions or comments related to, or can I get a motion for someone to approve the transfer of $5,959.66 to the Worcester County Retirement
So
account?
moved.
Is that you, Jim?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll go with Bruce. All right, so in order. Bruce,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Kevin? Is a yes. Sorry, I'm waiting for someone. Jim?
Yes.
All right, so that's 7-0. Okay.
Kevin,
So,
if you could just sign them and scan them to me tomorrow when you get a chance,
okay,
okay? I don't need originals. Thank you.
okay. No problems. All right, so that and that, and we go to the annual town meeting warrant. Article 1, I have is done. Article 2, Barbara did provide us with the report from their Community Preservation Committee. And I mean, it's just what gets printed in the back of the book, and I'm trying to edit this and I can't. So I'd be willing to entertain a motion that we accept Article 2 as written.
So moved.
Second.
That was Jeff and Larry?
Yes.
Joe and Larry. Sorry.
Joe and Larry.
Larry.
Any further questions or comments? All right, roll call. Bruce is a yes. I'm sorry, I'm reading the last one. Bruce?
That's a yes.
Okay. Joe?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Did you say my name? Yes. I didn't hear you, but yes.
Kevin is a yes. Jim?
Yes.
So that's 7-0. The approval of Article 2 is written. All right, rolling down through this. Article 3, Gav is done. 4 is done. 5, that's done. 6, for that discussion. 7 is done. 8, 9, 10, 11, line item budget. 12, good. 13, 14, 15. This needs capital improvement. So I have Article 17, ambulance stabilization fund. We were provided some data today related to that article. And so I just have a quick question. I guess this is for Jeff. You know, historically, we've always had 2 ambulances. One that was the frontline one and one that is a backup. When did we officially move to having 3 ambulances? Or did we?
I don't know that we officially did, but we kept the third one because there was really no value in a trade. And actually, it's worked out for us because we've had to loan it to other people due to contaminated ambulances of COVID. Other ambulances have broken down when one of our ambulances had to be disinfected. So it has worked out to have that spare. I don't know if long-term, when it becomes too expensive to keep repaired or serviceable, that we'll keep a third one. But during the COVID time, it's probably made a lot of sense.
Okay, but overall, the town's plan is still what it does right now. Have 2 ambulances replacing one on a 7-year rotation.
Okay. I don't know. I'm sure I've not done anything to change that plan, but,
Okay.
you know.
It's just, that's how, it usually was, and it seems like all of a sudden we're gonna have 3, and it's like, that's weird. It's because like you say, it's additional costs, especially on one that's older.
Well, we've not seen heavy repairs on it yet. We pay for insurance, we pay for fuel, we pay to keep the tech in it certified, but it's not like it's cost us a $30,000 transmission. And when we get to those points, we'll have to evaluate the efficacy of keeping that third ambulance.
Kevin, this is Mike. I don't see this as changing our approach. It is 2 active ambulances rotating on a 7-year basis. It's kind of like the same thing with police cruisers, right? We change out 2 a year, and what do we do with the old one? We try to trade it, we try to sell it, we try to get some residual value for it. But if we're really not getting any residual value for it and it's still usable, we find a way to keep it in a fleet, use it for something else in town. That's the way I view what we did this one. We rotated the ambulance out on its cycle. There really wasn't any residual value or trade value to this thing. And what do we do with it? They kind of kept it around for these miscellaneous uses and have gotten some extra value out of it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Bruce.
I would like to see that the town, sort of keep a log of the uses that the third ambulance was put to. I think it would be useful information for the town meeting voters. And it would give them the sense that they pursued every last, possible use. And I think it'll be a good thing to have. I don't think we can legislate it by any vote tonight, but I just recommend that as a way of going forward.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman?
Jeff pointed out a use that isn't even in the chief's document. The chief just basically says it goes to football games, but Jeff talked about how it worked out when they needed to disinfect one of the other tubes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Larry here. I happen to agree with Bruce on the merits, but I do have to go separate way only because the step itself is purely managerial, not financial. And we would be encroaching, and I think we would not welcome it in reverse if, in other words, all the shoes were on all the other feet. So it's a prudent idea, but as a finance committee member, I cannot endorse it because it's managerial.
I hear you, Larry. I think the idea of recommending it just because, part of our thing is to inform the people at the town meeting, yeah, here's how it's being used. So, right. It falls in our purview to just suggest it, but not require it. All right. So what's happening with Article 19? There's no number there. That's the tax rate relief fund?
So we expect that the guidance from the Treasury, it's slated to come out on the 10th, which is Monday. And so until that happens and we have the guidance to know what those federal funds can be used for, we don't have a number yet. So will we have one next week? I don't know. What we had stated to the Board of Selectmen is that we would leave the article the way it is, and then the motion would be specific, just because the guidance wasn't coming. We're now promised that it's supposed to be, well, on the 10th is supposed to be the last date. They said maybe sooner, but tomorrow's Friday, so I don't know. So I think at this point, if you want to wait till next Thursday to take action on this article, or I guess it would be that your recommendation is provided on town meeting floor.
Well, but at the very least, we know it's $858,527 roughly. Right? Because we have to fund the shortfall in the budget. And this is part of the way of doing it.
Yeah, so it's actually 869,923 right now
869,923, okay.
is the shortfall in the budget, because we don't forget, we made adjustments from the original budget for the results of the compensation plan.
Right.
And then a few other changes, minor changes.
So basically, we're trying to decide how much money right now the Board of Selectmen are going to add on top of this, based on what you find out from May 10th?
No, what we're trying to determine is how much of the federal stimulus money we would use, because some of that is revenue replacement.
That's right. You mentioned that earlier.
Right, but until the guidance comes out, it's hard to make that determination.
Yep. All right. So I guess we'll leave this one for a week.
So Kevin, this is Mike. Great if we get lots of money from that source and reduce this amount of money. But, I kind of look at, put this in perspective of how we used free cash to offset some of these things in the past, and usually a few $100,000. I think last year we were stretching this to $570,000, and so if we're at a point where we need $800,000+ to close that shortfall, it makes me question whether we're spending a little bit more than we really have available to spend here.
I think that's what Joni's point was about the $75,000 for the recreation article. We're spending money, we've got shortfalls in the budget.
That's not the case, though. We have a revenue loss of about $850,000 due to COVID. And that's what this federal money is for. So pre-COVID, our revenue numbers, categories, excise, hotel, motel, meals tax, ambulance, Medicaid reimbursement, court fines, earnings on investments, those would have been almost $850,000 higher than what we can budget or what we can use for revenue going into next year. The revenues that were used in building the fiscal 22 budget are very conservative, just because we don't know, when things are going to fully bounce back because of COVID. So while yes, every year I caution, we gotta control our spending, but that deficit that you see this year is because of COVID. It's not because we're spending beyond our means.
In that $890-something thousand is a placeholder until we got the guidance on how to use the federal money, which has a specific purpose as revenue replacement due to COVID. That was a placeholder to balance the budget until we got the necessary guidance on how to use the $2.8 million we'll receive over the next 2+ years.
I think one of the things that's specified in the legislation was you couldn't use it to reduce the tax rate. So if we're not looking to reduce the tax rate, then
we
have to wait and see what the number came in. Two separate issues.
Two separate issues, right. The $890 is for the budget itself. Then you have a separate warrant article, which is not the federal money, on adjustments to the tax rate.
And you can do that as long as you don't use the federal money to achieve that purpose, is my understanding.
Absolutely.
Of the regulation.
Okay. So thank you, Barbara. And I do know we talked quite a bit about hotel motel tax, and that one's pretty obvious why we're having revenue reductions there. You mentioned ambulance and a bunch of other sources. So if kind of like that summary that you gave is in the budget book, if someone could just point me to the page, or if not, just for information purposes, it'd be nice to get an idea as to, the categories you talked about and the dollar amounts in those that you can send outside of this meeting here.
Page E3 in the budget
E3?
book. That's like my Bible. That's been a long time I used that sheet of paper. That shows you how much we're under,
Yeah.
But as
Conservative,
Barbara noted, that number is modified to 869,923 because of the changes we've made, line item budget and elsewhere.
conservatively, the revenue lost from 2019 due to COVID is $1 million to 1.2 million. From 2020, it's around $1 million because COVID hit a little bit there. So, we're right in the ballpark where we're at with 890. I think we can justify, a lot of that with the federal money.
And Mike, if you go to the budget book to the 5-year forecast tab, just look at the detailed expense, revenue categories. If you just eyeball it from fiscal 19 or fiscal 20 to 21 and then 22, you'll see those categories that were affected.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
16. Okay. All right, so I guess we'll wait and hope next week we can deal with Article 19, so that'll stay open. All right, 20, we voted. 21, we voted. 22 is the water department, that's good. 23 sewer, project debt. 20 pipe coat and maintenance, I know we voted that. 26. Where's my little cheat sheet? All right, so 26 you did last week. 27 is good. 28 was good, I remember that. 29, that is the radio system. You guys did that last week. And there was a wording error. Did we correct that? Article 30. I'm going to say did that because I see it filled in, but that 31 acceptance Hillside Drive. All right. 32 we took care of tonight. We're waiting for final language. 33, that's okay. 34, Sturbridge Veterans. That had to be last week. 35, 36, codification, we did that. 37, good. Where the heck is the next one? All right. So I'm all the way up to 40s, and I'm pretty sure I remember doing earth removal in 41. 42, all right. So this is the language. Because the intent wasn't to have an example as such as, so I don't know if we, so Jeff, based on how we're handling the article for the bounds of this easement, is this something we can just change wording, or do we need to revote and change this?
Whatever you want to do, Mr. Chair.
Because our intent would have been to take out the words under the definition of poultry and other fowl the and game birds such as, so it would have gone rock cornice hens, pheasant, and squab, and ended. That was the intent of the motion we made at that meeting when we adjusted this.
If
But,
that was the motion, and Joanne, if you can send us that motion, and if they voted the article that way, we'll adjust the warrant and we'll be done with it. We had some confusion, wait a minute, hold on. We had some confusion at the staff level on what the actual wording was. But if there's a set of minutes with the way that's supposed to read, we'll take it off the minutes because it's been voted and make the adjustment in the document.
We watch the same show too.
What?
I'm trying to find, I know we voted those minutes. I'm going to have to find them to see what our language said.
So Kevin, this is Mike. When this came up last week, I looked at the notes and edits that I was making on a warrant article here, and I didn't strike the sentence that you're saying was part of our intent. I did not see that we talked about striking that sentence.
Well, no, that was definitely, because if you remember, I had made, in it says "and game birds," such as is just for, like, for example. But I talked about emus and ostriches and things like that. We want to be very restrictive. We don't want to leave an opening. So that's why that was my intent, but I'm not, and I talked with Barbara, and I think it wasn't clear when Gene redid the language. I think he left birds such as in there as well. We may have voted it that way, but that was definitely not what I intended. So I'd like to, actually, I guess I would need to reconsider this and strike those 1, 2, 3, 5 words.
I spoke to Jean and she indicated that what you see is what she read back to the finance committee based on the discussion.
Right, so then we would need to reconsider this and amend that language to strike those 5 words. So I guess I would be looking for a motion to reconsider Article 42.
This is Jim, I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second? Okay, I'll second. All right, so then we'll move on. Is there any further discussion or questions, comments?
I rewatched the meeting the tape, and I think there was some confusion there, and that language was left in mistakenly, Kevin, because as I watched the meeting, I'm getting feedback from somebody.
Yeah, something's beeping somewhere.
As I watched the meeting, and I understood the intent, and the intent was to tighten that up so that someone couldn't say, well, an ostrich is a game bird such as a pheasant or an emu is. We wanted to limit it to just the specific species that were named in that sentence. And that was the understanding I took away, and I think it got kind of muddled in the course of the conversation. The expression was used like, and skip the rest, ... boom, and so perhaps it was just a misunderstanding. But I didn't misunderstand the intent of what you were trying to accomplish, and that's what you were trying to tighten it up, to get rid of that, such as to make it specific and restricted. That's all I have to say.
So the motion will allow game birds.
No. It'll allow chicken, hen, turkey, goose, duck, rock cornice hens, pheasant, and squab.
And pheasant and squab happen to be game birds, but they're named specifically. But to just put such as opens it to any game bird that draws breath. And that's what Kevin was trying to avoid.
All right.
I understand what you're accomplishing. Do we have an opinion of whoever's bringing forth the article that's, consistent with their intent and what they're trying to achieve here? Or are we
She
by
wanted-
limiting the game birds, we're over shrinking what they were trying to allow.
Well, I think we made a joke about ostriches, and if you want to have that happen, they can do that under this definition. Someone could raise ostrich. Emu, I mean,
Rheas, anything that's big.
you'd end up with large animals that are considered game birds.
So I have a first and a second for reconsideration. Any other comments? All right, then we'll go down to roll call. Bruce? I don't think Bruce is available.
Are we sure he's okay? Does he have someone that,
Yeah, it looked like he
looked
took
like he
something, yeah, something took a tumble. And
That's not true, Rover.
it's unclear.
But I was watching that, Larry, and after that activity took place, then he muted his device, so keep our fingers crossed that it reappears.
Kevin, are we voting on a motion to reconsider, or are we just voting on a motion to amend?
It's a motion to reconsider, so then we can take a motion to amend and take out 5 letters, 5 words. All right, so I'm gonna just, while Bruce is moving right now.
yes.
So Bruce, we're doing a motion to reconsider. We need your vote.
Yes.
Okay. Joe?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes,
Kathy?
Yes.
Kevin is a yes, and Jim?
Yes,
Okay, so it's 7-0 to reconsider it. So now I would just make it a motion to amend Article 42 by striking the words "and game birds such as" in the definition of poultry and other fowl, and otherwise leave it as written.
I'll second that.
I don't think, okay. So KS and J for the both, AW. All right. Any other comments? Just amending that wording. Right.
What's the new wording read? How's it read?
It would read, "For the purpose of this bylaw shall be limited to chicken, comma, hen, comma, turkey, comma, goose, comma, duck, comma, rock Cornish hens, comma, pheasant, comma, and squab."
No prairie chicken?
Please.
Prairie chicken?
Nope.
Pigeons? No pigeons?
You can have yours with Curry.
Can we vote?
How about quail? Quail are cool.
Nope,
Get some nice-
he won't allow quail.
Right, it wouldn't. But it wasn't there to begin with either.
It was there in a broader sense. No grouse.
Right.
It's a fair point, but I mean, but then you could do ostriches, turkeys, rheas, you name it. Anything that can be characterized as a game bird.
Run some dogs, you know.
I
pterodactyl.
mean, it's not very tightly written.
I hear you.
So that's the first and the second. Any further discussion? Otherwise, we'll just go into a vote. All right, so this is on the amended language for Article 42. So Bruce,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes,
Kathy,
Yes.
Kevin's a yes, and Jim.
Yes,
Okay, that's 7-0 in favor of the amended language. All right, moving on. 43, it says we're done with it. 44, we took care of today. 45, we took care of today. All right, so that gets us to the annual town meeting. So special town meetings.
Could I ask a question, Kevin, since I was late to arrive? Article 45 on the Maple Street water line. I
Yes?
assume that passed? We're recommending that?
It did, 6-0.
Figures, thank you.
Article 45. So Barbara,
Yes,
in this, when you edit this and send us the final one, will you put the correct heading on it that basically has, the location, the date, this is the special town meeting warrant, et cetera?
yes, that'll be, yeah.
Okay, so for the special town meeting, we're using a file entitled Articles for STM Warrant 6.7.2021_AJM_2021-05-04. All right, so snow and ice deficit was approved. Unpaid bills from the fiscal year, I got an adjustment to that we needed to make for tonight's motion. Barbara found another unpaid bill, so the total will now be $1,109.30. So I guess if that was, did we actually vote that last week?
Yes.
Okay, so then we need to reconsider Article 46.
So moved.
Second.
So that's, all right, hang on, that's Jeff and Larry. And Larry, any further comments related to the All righty, so moving through the roll call. Bruce,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Mike,
I'm sorry, step away. The motion is what?
to reconsider Article 46 of the special town meeting, since there was another bill uncovered and there's a new total.
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Larry,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Kevin's a yes, and Jim.
Yes.
All righty, so reconsideration is 7-0. All right, so Article 46, I guess now we would vote the town to vote to transfer $1,109.30 from free cash to pay unpaid bills of the previous year.
So move.
Second.
Okay? So that's Jeff and Larry.
Joe,
No. That was Larry.
Someone just say something?
it's Joe and Larry.
Oh, Joe and Larry. I don't even know why I keep saying Jeff.
It's actually Larry and Joe, but that's okay.
I wrote down Larry first.
All right.
They get brother named Mo too.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the transfer of $1,109.30. Any other comments? All right, roll call. Bruce,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes,
Larry,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Kevin's a yes. And Jim?
Yes.
It's 7-0 in favor of the new language. All right. And I don't think there was anything else left on the special town meeting that we needed to act upon. Unless someone's aware of something I'm not. All right. So going on from there, we do have meeting minutes. And those are the minutes of April 29th, which was last week. So I'll give everyone a quick second to review them if you haven't already.
I'll make the motion to approve, Kevin. I read them already.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, Larry. Meeting minutes for 4/29. Approved as written. Jim and Larry. Any further questions or comments before we go to the roll call? All right, Bruce,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Kevin is abstaining, Jim.
Yes.
Okay, so that vote is 6-0 to 1 to accept the minutes as written. All right, new business. New business is the report of the Finance Committee. I need a lot of help with this because it's been horrendous around here lately. So, Kathy, some of the details, a lot of the logistics I don't have, like who did we use as a printer in the last couple of years?
It's that same guy whose name escapes me, but he moved to where? He used to be in Charlton.
Isn't BT still in Charlton and he sold the
No.
business?
Oh, yeah, it's that
Oh,
guy,
it's
but he
not-
moved to where about at least 2 years ago?
So is BT in where?
Yes. I believe it's where.
All right.
I have his email. I could send it. It's probably the same, though.
If you could, though, just send it to me. That would be great because I need to obviously talk to him about, Barbara, this is where, it'd be good to get it's probably not a lot of changes as far as number of pages go. Have to roughly deal with that. All right. So what I was hoping we could get done is like assign some of the things to do. So Jim, I was hoping you could actually write the front section of the report of the Finance Committee and basically hit some of the high points that basically talks about, as we approach the new normal in the post-pandemic world, we're still suffering from having to fund operations using our savings, but hopefully that'll adjust when revenue returns. And then with this budget, we're implementing the new salary structures. We're returning a police lieutenant to the to the police department, and then we're adding a deputy police chief to the fire department, and then whatever else you think is highlightable.
Yep.
And then, so Jonio is going to have put together the line item budget, and she has that document already and has put in all the ROLVR adjustments, and we'll need to make just a couple adjustments as far as the sentencing goes about where people are being paid from. And then I was hoping that between Kathy, Mike, and Larry, you could look at the annual and special town meeting warrants and look at the text boxes and see what needs to be modified and adjusted. And then if we could get it all back next week and I could piece it all together and try and discuss it next Thursday night. And so we can kind of get a sense that it reflects what we want to do. And if anyone has anything they want to volunteer for or help out with, or know something they want to espouse, feel free to let me know. But that's where I'm kind of hoping we can go by next Thursday night. And obviously, we still have the one outstanding Article 19, but we'll hopefully have that guidance like was suggested come Monday. And then we'll just verify the language in that easement article. That's where I'm hoping to go.
Great.
Anybody else have any comments, thoughts? Feel free to.
Should be doable.
I hope so. And I'm always here to assist where I can. Is there any other new business? All right, old business. Anybody? And we've already discussed, need to bring up, highlight. All right, public access. Jeff, is there anybody there that wants to talk to us?
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to address the Finance Committee? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to address the Finance Committee? There's no one out there, Mr. Chair.
I have to ask, have you ever had someone on the public line doing public access or any other meeting?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yep.
People do.
We had a very nice public hearing on the Fisk Hill Road, right of first refusal. We've had a couple other comments. Concom, not routinely, but infrequently has people on the public line, so.
Good. All right. Seeing there's no public access, I'd accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Bruce, do I have a second?
Second, Larry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Larry, I didn't hear you. All right, so down the road, Bruce,
Yes.
Karen's not here. Joe,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Kevin is a yes, and Jim.
Yes.
All right, so we have 7-0 in favor of adjournment at 8:42 PM. Thank you all. We're almost there. The goal line is quite in sight. We're only 2 things left to act on.